Saturn is destroying itself, and no one can stop it. Its magnetic field pulls its own rings apart every single second. There is a perfect hexagon sitting on its north pole, twice the size of Earth, stable for 40 years, unexplained. Its magnetic field is so perfect that physics says it cannot exist. Every other planet has a tilt. Saturn has almost none.
The full story is on the channel right now. Subscribe to Noxar Flux. New space docs every single week.
This is not music. This is not fiction. This is a sound that should not exist, and it is coming from Saturn. The Cassini probe captured radio waves from Saturn, and when scientists converted them to audio, no one was quite prepared.
It sounds like something alive, something vast, something aware, which is exactly why Saturn has been disturbing scientists for decades. Saturn is the sixth planet in our solar system, the second gas giant, and at first glance, one of the most beautiful things in existence. Those rings are not decoration. They are billions of individual ice particles and rock fragments, some tiny as a grain of sand, others as large as a house. The rings stretch across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, yet they are only about 100 meters thick, which is almost impossible to believe.
But here is what most people do not know. Saturn is destroying its own rings, and eventually there will be nothing left. The rings are not permanent. They are disappearing actively, right now, at a rate that should make anyone uncomfortable when they truly understand it.
Scientists call it ring rain, a constant invisible downpour of ice and dust falling directly into Saturn itself every second of every day. The mechanism is Saturn's own magnetic field. It is one of the most powerful in the solar system, and it is electrifying the ice particles in the rings.
Sunlight, radiation, and particle bombardment from deep space charge the ice electrically, and the moment that happens, the particle no longer follows its orbit. The magnetic field grabs the newly charged particle and redirects it, pulling it down, not into space, but into Saturn itself.
And it happens everywhere, all the way around the planet, simultaneously, a silent planetary scale consumption that never pauses.
At current rates, the inner rings could be completely gone within 100 million years, which, in cosmic time, is an eye blink. The planet that looks most like something from a dream is quietly consuming the very thing that makes it recognizable, and it cannot stop.
But the rings are just the beginning, because deep inside Saturn, something stranger is happening, something that the rings cannot prepare you for. When you look at Saturn from directly above its north pole, you see something that every scientist who first encountered it thought was a mistake. There is a hexagon on Saturn. Not a circle, not a spiral, not a storm in any shape you would expect. A hexagon. Mathematically perfect.
Each edge is straight. Each angle is sharp. On a gas giant where everything should be round and turbulent, this shape exists with geometric precision. The hexagon is approximately 30,000 kilometers across. For scale, Earth is only 12,700,
and it rotates. Smooth, steady, almost mechanical, as if some enormous machine below the surface is driving it with perfect consistency. We first saw it in 1981. Voyager 1 flew past Saturn and sent back images. Scientists assumed it was a sensor glitch, an error in the data.
Decades later, Cassini arrived, observed Saturn for years, and the hexagon was still there. Same shape, same size, same position, unchanged.
The hexagon has now been observed for over 40 years without changing shape, and yet we still cannot fully explain why it is there.
Terrestrial hurricanes last days. Even Jupiter's great red spot is slowly shrinking. But Saturn's hexagon has held its exact form for at minimum 4 decades. When Cassini first photographed the hexagon in high resolution, the interior was blue, a deep, striking blue unlike anything surrounding it.
Years later, within the same Cassini mission, the hexagon had changed color to a warm yellow. Same storm, same shape, completely different atmosphere.
Scientists believe the color change is seasonal. Probably, but no one can say for certain because we do not fully understand what is driving this storm. Cassini revealed something disturbing. The hexagon isn't on the surface. It's a towering column of gas plunging hundreds of kilometers deep.
This geometric shape is not just on the surface. It is rooted deep inside Saturn, a rotating hexagonal column, and when Cassini looked above the hexagon into the upper stratosphere, it found a second hexagon directly above the first, a perfect copy 1 layer higher.
Same shape, same orientation. A multi-story geometric structure on a gas giant billions of kilometers from Earth, stacked like floors in a building that should not exist. Physicists can actually reproduce this shape in a laboratory. Liquids rotating at different speeds naturally produce hexagonal boundaries at certain conditions. Saturn radiates more energy than it receives from the Sun. Its core heats the planet from within, and that internal engine is likely what keeps the hexagon alive. But the laboratory explains the shape, not the stability. And it does not explain why the hexagon exists only at the North Pole.
Saturn's south pole has a massive cyclone, powerful and vast, but it is round. The north has a perfect hexagon, the south has nothing like it.
The conditions at the South Pole are not fundamentally different. Same planet, same atmosphere, same physics, and yet only the North produces this impossible shape. Why only the North? We do not know. And that absence of an answer is one of the most unsettling things in all of planetary science. We have a planet actively eating its own rings and hosting a multi-story geometric storm structure that defies easy explanation. But we are not finished. Because the most disturbing thing about Saturn is invisible. You cannot see it, you cannot photograph it directly, you can only measure it. And when you do, it makes no sense. Every planet with a magnetic field has one thing in common. The magnetic poles do not perfectly align with the geographic poles. There is always a tilt. Earth's magnetic poles deviate from its rotation axis by about 11 degrees. Jupiter's deviation is even larger. Uranus and Neptune show massive tilts. This deviation is not just normal, it is expected. It is what physics demands from a dynamo process. And then there is Saturn. Saturn's magnetic field deviates from its axis by less than 1/10 of 1 degree. To generate a magnetic field, a planet needs what scientists call a dynamo effect. Conductive fluid deep inside moving in constant turbulent chaotic motion. On Earth, that fluid is liquid iron. On Saturn, it is metallic hydrogen, a form of hydrogen that exists only under pressures so extreme it becomes electrically conductive. And inside Saturn right now, that metallic hydrogen is moving in constant turbulent disorder. The physics is not ambiguous. Chaos breeds disorder. A magnetic field produced by turbulent, irregular flows must itself be irregular, tilted, imperfect. But Saturn's field is almost perfectly ordered, perfectly symmetrical. The deviation is so small it is essentially zero. This should not be possible. This is not a measurement error. Scientists have verified it repeatedly. The symmetry is real. The almost perfect alignment is confirmed. And it violates what we expect. Our current models do not just struggle to explain this. Our current models actively predict it cannot exist. A perfectly axial magnetic field contradicts dynamo theory. One theory suggests a layer of semi-ionized hydrogen above the core acts like a filter, smoothing the chaotic field before it reaches the surface of the planet.
It is a plausible theory, but it is not proven. We cannot see below Saturn's cloud tops. We do not know what is actually happening hundreds of kilometers down. The deepest interior of Saturn remains completely inaccessible to us. We can measure what exits from the planet. We cannot see what is happening inside it.
And this is the paradox that makes Saturn so deeply unsettling. Outwardly, it presents perfect order. Rings, symmetry, geometry, everything composed and elegant. It carries maximum chaos inside and projects maximum order outside, and not one model we have built can fully account for how that is happening. Saturn even produces auroras. But unlike Earth auroras, which shimmer and dance irregularly, above the hexagon, auroras pulse. And the hexagon sits below them, both structures sharing the same pole. Cassini spent 13 years at Saturn, more time than any spacecraft has spent at any planet other than Earth. And the more it measured, the more questions it raised. In 2017, Cassini made its final dive into Saturn's atmosphere. It was destroyed deliberately to prevent contaminating Saturn's moons. Its final measurements showed Saturn's magnetic field was even more precisely aligned than previously measured, more perfect than the instruments had first been able to confirm. Even as it was destroyed, Saturn kept its secret. The perfect symmetry of the field, the hexagon still rotating.
Scientists estimate the rings are losing mass at a rate equivalent to an Olympic swimming pool worth of material every half hour. Every half hour, continuously.
In 100 million years, if nothing changes, Saturn as we know it will look completely different. The rings that define it will be gone, consumed.
It will still be Saturn, still a gas giant, still massive. But that defining visual, those rings that made it iconic.
We exist at a very specific moment in Saturn's history, the brief window when it has rings at all. In cosmic time, we are extraordinarily lucky to be watching this. A planet eating its rings, a geometric storm that should not be stable, a magnetic field that defies the physics of how magnetic fields form, all three at once. Saturn is not just interesting, it is a planet that specifically refuses to be fully understood, as if understanding it fully is something it will not allow. The next dedicated Saturn mission is still in planning stages. No spacecraft is currently traveling to Saturn. The data we have is what Cassini gave us, and that is all. Everything we know about Saturn comes from flybys and 13 years of Cassini data. For such a disturbing planet, we have spent surprisingly little time trying to understand it.
Here's the thing about Saturn that I keep coming back to. The more beautiful it looks, the more disturbing the details become when you know what you are seeing.
Those rings are disappearing. Every particle you see catching the light is a particle that will eventually fall into the planet. The beauty is temporary.
And that magnetic field is still perfectly aligned right now. Impossible by our models, real by our measurements, a contradiction that no one has fully resolved.
What Saturn tells us is something important about science itself. We have sent sophisticated machines to this planet. We have measured it for decades.
And Saturn has responded by being more mysterious each time we look. Each answer has produced 3 more questions. Each measurement has deepened the puzzle.
That is actually a beautiful thing about Saturn. It refuses to be settled. It remains genuinely open, a real scientific mystery still waiting for its real explanation. Future missions to Saturn will change what we know. When a probe descends through that atmosphere, when we measure the interior directly, answers will come. Scientists are already designing the instruments, already modeling what a future Saturn probe would need to survive the pressure of the upper atmosphere to send data back. When we finally understand the hexagon fully, when we resolve the magnetic field paradox, it will rewrite how we model gas giant interiors across the entire universe.
Because Saturn is not unique to our solar system. Gas giants exist around billions of stars. Understanding Saturn means understanding a planetary type that fills the galaxy. Somewhere around another star, right now, there is almost certainly a gas giant with its own version of these mysteries. Saturn is our window into understanding those worlds.
And those radio waves, the sound that opened this story, that eerie electromagnetic signal, it is Saturn's magnetic field interacting with the solar wind.
That sound is Saturn's impossibly symmetric field doing something it theoretically should not be able to do, and broadcasting the evidence of that impossibility into space.
The scariest thing about Saturn is not any individual mystery. It is that all 3 mysteries exist simultaneously on the same planet, reinforcing each other. A planet consuming itself, a structure that should not be geometrically stable, a field that should not be symmetrical. 1 planet, 3 violations of expectation.
Saturn does not need to be understood to be disturbing. The fact that it sits out there, beautiful and calm, carrying these impossibilities, is enough.
Subscribe to Noxar Flux so you never miss a story. New space documentaries are coming every single week, only on this channel.